I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be. Hello, everyone. It's Todd Scrima with another Be Your Best podcast series. Sometimes I have guests on here, sometimes I don't. This one is just me, and I'm going to share with you 7 tactics, lessons that I've learned to experience more joy and less stress. I have a unique advantage of spending 20 years coaching people professionally in business. And when you do that, there's a saying that if you improve the person, you improve the business. And I have always felt that about myself. I've always felt motivated to learn about things like psychology and habits that we form in order to have a better life. So I don't want to be up here and I'll share a lot of struggles that I've had in my life. I don't want to come across as a know-it-all or I've got this all figured out. But I do have a lot of experience personally and professionally in these areas. And I thought I would just do a podcast that was about how to live your best life. And when you think about that, just saying that out loud is a little intimidating. You're thinking to yourself, gosh, who am I to be bigger and larger than life and better than I was yesterday? And it can be pretty intimidating. I was just talking to, I had an employee that had a 9-year anniversary today, and she's just accepted a promotion to do something bigger within the company. And I was talking to her and I said, I'm really proud of you. And she says, why? I said, well, you've kind of mastered what you've done this last 9 years, and it's probably time for the next venture. And she said, well, it's really scary. And I said, that's when you know you're doing something good. And what I mean by that is running towards something that is challenging to you, that is a new challenge, whether it's having a child or getting married or going to college. I remember I went to Sac State University, and I came from a town of 14,000 people growing up on a farm. And I remember I was going through orientation. And so I drove down to Sacramento, about a 3-hour drive from where I was living. And I showed up, and there's all these people, and they broke you into groups of maybe 100 people, and you're taking a tour around campus. And at one point I raised my hand and said, hey, how many people go here? And she said, 26,000. And I said, do you mean 2,600? And my high school, I think, had 200 people in it. And she said, no, 26,000. And that was a before and after moment. I was like, wow, 26, I'm going to be going to school with 26,000 people. I quickly did the math and figured out at least 50% were women. So that made me feel a lot better, but it was very intimidating to realize that, there's that many people going to a college. So whenever you have moments where you're feeling insecure, you're feeling scared, just check yourself and say, hey, I'm growing, I'm learning, and that's going to be a good thing. So what are those 7 things? I'm going to cover these 7 things. I'm going to go through some stories, maybe about each one. And then I'm going to hopefully give you a tactic that you can actually take away. And, one of the things, as I said before on this, is I love information. I also want to know what to do with it, because if I just listen to something and there's no real, nothing, I don't change any of my behavior because of it, I just wasted my time. And so I want to give you some ideas but then actually what you can do with that, that would make a difference, starting tomorrow in your life. So I've got for those of you that are watching this, I've got a visual aid. Remember, you can always get these visual aids on beyourbestseries.com. So if you're driving, don't worry about it. But if you're watching this on YouTube, for example, hopefully you can see this visual. I'll go through these 7 things. I'm going to talk about each one. Number 1 is focus on things that make your life better. I will explain that. Number 2, a daily gratitude journal. This is a big tactic, so I'll talk about that. And it's very simple. Number 3 is shift your perspective. Number 4 is make your opinions of yourself more important than the opinion others have of you. Number 5, maintain a healthy lifestyle. Number 6, surround yourself with positive, motivating people. And number 7 is think big. So let's start and talk about each one of these things. The first one is focus on things that make your life better. Um, think of everything, think of today, or think of yesterday, and think of, hey, what were some things that happened that didn't improve my life? They didn't add to my life. So maybe you had dinner with your children, that would be adding to your life. Maybe if I spent an hour watching something, say a bunch of negative news. News is a big one for me. I think whatever you put in your head, it's like food you put in your body. And so if it's a little toxic, it's not gonna make you happier. It's not gonna benefit your life. Now, when I say all that doesn't mean stick your head in the sand. What that means is take a moment and just ask yourself, is this making my life better? And it can be. There's a lot of examples of that. My tactic to this is to limit news and social media consumption to 10 minutes per day. you know, I'm so when I got divorced about 5 years ago, I never had a Facebook account. And I thought one day it occurred to me, I said, I should probably do this. I should probably have some sort of Facebook account. My ex used to tell me who was having babies and who was getting married. And, she would kind of filter all that stuff. So I jumped on Facebook and I created a profile, and my phone didn't stop ringing for, I don't know, 3, 4 days. And it finally tapped out. I guess there's a limit of 5,000 friends that you can have on Facebook. And looking back, I probably would have done it different, but I didn't. And I don't really post a bunch of personal stuff about my personal life because I think the friends that I have and the family that I have, I call them or text them or go see them. And but one thing I've noticed about social media is people. There's a saying that comparison is the thief to joy. Well, it's funny. The few times I've been on that, and I'll look at someone that say I'm coaching them, and there's a bunch of catastrophe happening in their life, but yet the image that is given on Facebook is, man, I would be envious. Wow, they're in Hawaii and they just renewed their vows and all this, but I secretly know what's happening behind the scenes, and it's not good. So I think that is a component. Social media is now everyone's ability to get their voice out, and I think that's a good thing. But I think it can have some negative effects if we don't understand what we're consuming. News is the same way. So people ask me, say, Todd, you run some big companies. What do you mean you really don't watch the news? And what I mean by that is I can go on, I don't know, USA Today or my stock screen and figure out business news, and literally in about 60 seconds find out if there's anything major going on. Oftentimes I don't do that. There's several days where I don't do that at all. And if something big is going on, then someone will tell me. As an example, I had dinner set up with a friend of mine that lives out of town, and she sent me a cryptic text. We're having dinner around 6 o'clock, and this is, I don't know, May or June or something like that, and the riots were happening. And that she said something like, I guess we're not having dinner, ? So I called her on my way home around 5 o'clock, and I said, hey, no, I'll be there. I'm just going home and I'm going to change and I'll see you there. And she says, no, we can't go out at all. There's a curfew and there's riots. And I said, what are you talking about? So yes, I did go home that night and found out all the craziness that was going on, but not learning that earlier didn't change my life. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about. I don't mean to stick your head in the sand, but what I do mean is be very careful on what you consume. And I just feel that's very important, especially in today's day and age. Number 2 says, have a daily gratitude journal. So I believe that we control our feelings. I believe that we control our happiness and our joy. It's just how we think about it. And I know for me, I had an emotional coach about 5 years ago, and I never understood this about myself. And someday I'll probably talk about it, but I did this thing called catastrophication. So I'm one of these people that's kind of naturally happy. and see everything as glass half full, and think people have great intentions all the time. And but what I did do is, if I would catastrophize a lot, and I would say, well, say an employee quit me, and I would just take it super personal. I'd be like, oh, great, 20 more people are going to quit today. And of course that never happened. But that is changed since I developed this. And I forgot, I think it was this emotional coach, but I can't really remember, saying, hey, you should do a gratitude journal. So I went online on Amazon. There's all kinds of daily gratitude journals. And I just bought one, and I spend every single morning for about 3 minutes just writing down and feeling what I'm grateful for. And it really makes a difference. So that's the tactic. I remember years ago, this is over 30 years ago now, but I was in college, and I got a call from my mom, hysterical. And I said, Mom, what's going on? And she says, your nephew drowned in the swimming pool, and you got to drive up here right away. So this is before cell phones and all that. So I take a 3-hour drive, go to the hospital. No one would talk to me. My family was gone. Come to find out that my nephew had was staying with some family members and drowned in a swimming pool. And just a horrific, I mean, he was named after me. I was very connected to this child. And I went through that heavy grieving process that everyone's got to go through. And I ended up writing a letter to him as part of that. And I don't know where that idea came from, but one of the things I wrote in that letter is, I said, I'm going to live a life because you didn't get to. And it really made a difference. And I remember writing it to this day. And so somehow writing our feelings and our thoughts down, it really does make a difference. When you talk about learning and how different people learn, I know one of the ways that I learn is kinesthetic learning. Somehow writing things out helps me release those hidden feelings and emotions. So you're doing that a little bit on a daily basis. And that's really what this is about. So what I used to do is I would wake up and I'm immediately checking my phone, and I'm making a to-do list, and I'm afraid I'm going to forget something, and it's 6 a.m. And the problem with that is that we're not starting our day with a healthy habit. So I generally go work out, come home and spend a few minutes doing my gratitude journal. I started this other thing where I talk to God each day and just talk to him as if he was a buddy. Don't know where I got that one either, but my spiritual coach actually asked me to do that, now that I think about it. And so I have this little routine that I do, and it just starts the day off different. And again, the premise of all this is that we control our thoughts, we control our emotions. And life happens. Life doesn't happen to us. That's a victim mentality. And so all of these things are taking control of our surroundings, of how we think and how we feel. The third thing says, shift your perspective. So in a moment of stress, consciously ask yourself, is this a mountain or is this an anthill? So let me explain that. Years ago, again, someone's told me this, and I just have these things that I remember. And to me, there's kind of magic moments in your life when it's a before and after moment. Just as a side story, I remember my dad one day said, hey, son, go rake all the leaves. Well, we had this big old lawn, and it was fall. And so I go up and I fill up 5 garbage bags worth of leaves, but I really didn't do a great job. And so there's this, there's still leaves scattered all around. And my stepfather came out, and, maybe I'm 10 years old or something like that. And he says, son, I told you to rake the leaves, did I not? And I said, yeah. And he looks at the lawn and he says, there's still leaves. Come get me when there's 0 leaves. And he went back in the house. And so the deal was I got to play if I could pick up all the leaves. And so I went up and spotless, right? Not a leaf on the ground. And Dad let me go play. That was a before and after moment for me of completing a task. Like when you start something, complete it. Something that I see a lot of people struggle with in life. So but I trace all that back to that story when I was 10 years old. So we have these magic moments in life. I just told you a story about my nephew passing away. That's a before and after moment. We have these different moments. So I developed that into what I call mountains and anthills. So an anthill is someone quits your company. An anthill is you got a flat tire. And an anthill is you got into a fender bender. Mountains do happen in life. They just don't happen as much as we think. And so a mountain is, I had an acquaintance call me yesterday and tell me he had to cancel an appointment because he just got diagnosed with brain cancer. That's a mountain. And he had to go do some emergency stuff in another state. So that is a mountain. A mountain is, someone passing away, someone seriously getting injured. And those things do happen, but they just don't happen as much as sometimes we treat the anthill like it's a mountain, and it's just not. Sometimes I tell people, hey, think of this in 5 years. Is it really going to matter? We're only on this life, on this earth for a short amount of time. Just some perspective that I look at is I turned 50 a while ago, and it hit me that, if my life is a time clock and the average male lives to be 85 or so years old, that, I have not that many summers left, maybe 25, maybe 35. I don't have that many Christmases left. I don't have that many vacations left. And so when you start thinking about life as precious and we treat it that way, to me, it'll make all of these 7 things make more sense. I don't want to be that person that says, hey, I will enjoy my life when I'm retired. Well, the problem is by the time you're retired, sometimes you don't have as much energy and you're not going to go on those trips to Europe and you're not going to do those things. So we're not going to learn guitar when I'm 75 years old. I need to learn that stuff now so that I can enjoy it. So shift our perspective. Is it a mountain or is it an anthill? And sometimes it helps to out loud say that because it'll force you to make a choice. Number 4 is make your opinion of yourself more important than the opinion others have of you. So the tactic is when you receive criticism, ask yourself, does this person have my best interest in mind, or do they have something to gain by treating me poorly? Are they looking to feel better about themselves? Are they looking to gain leverage on you? What is it about that? Now, I personally enjoy criticism. I'm one of the few people I know that feel that way about criticism. I think that as long as it's coming from a person that has my best interests in mind, and I trust them, and I know what they're I think they know what they're talking about, then I will trust them. So I'm not saying criticism is bad, but a lot of people will give you opinions of yourself, and there's something for them to gain from it. Think of the little kid that you don't let your kid have dessert, and they say, you don't like me, you hate me, right? That's exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, Todd, that's a kid. Well, no, adults do the same thing, right? Adults do the same thing, and I see it all the time. So what is it that your opinion of yourself, having a good self-image? I think I shared on the business planning podcast with Jim, but I do mean this sincerely, is I think of raising my children, and I said, what I really want is I want them to have self-confidence. That's a major thing for me, and that's kind of what this is pointing towards. If you know that you're a good person, you have good intentions, and you're working on getting better, that's good enough, and that should be good enough for anybody. So anyway, that's one that I think is kind of hard for people to rally around and really have that inner self-confidence. But if you're doing really good things and you're not harming people and you're actually helping people, that's what life's about. I tell people, I've done a lot of studying on happiness and joy, and 2 of the things that help people feel more joyful and more happiness is when they feel like they're making progress. Well, if you don't talk to yourself this way and you don't have a strong opinion of yourself that you are making progress and that you're moving forward, then I think that's, you're going to let people over influence you. And so that's kind of what this is about. Number 5 says maintain a healthy lifestyle. This is a big one for me. So again, about maybe 6 years ago, I was 27 pounds heavier. So I'm 188 pounds, 186 pounds right now. My high, I remember getting on the scale and I was 217. I remember looking, it's one of those moments where it's kind of burned in my memory. And I just thought to myself, hey, you're kind of chubby. Like there's no reason for this. It's, what can I do to change it? And so what I did was, and this is the only thing I did, because I've always exercised. I've always loved to exercise. And years ago, over 20 years ago, I made a commitment saying, hey, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to work out. And sometimes that's a run. Sometimes it's with a personal trainer. Sometimes it's working out in the home gym. But so I was always doing that and enjoy sports and stuff like that. Where I struggled was the eating. And so again, whatever you put into your body is, I think the whole healthy lifestyle thing, it's about 80% diet. I think that white sugar is the enemy, although I still love it. Ice cream and there's sugar in ketchup. I mean, there's just a lot of sugar and stuff. And so how do you get through that? And I'm going to just share with you my belief and how I did it. I joined a meal plan. And I don't know if this is a big chain, but I use fiteats.com. Again, for 5-6 years now. And I do intermittent fasting. So I don't eat after about 8 o'clock and I don't eat again until noon. And then I will eat a Fit Eats for lunch and a Fit Eats for dinner. Kind of makes it easy with my busy lifestyle because I don't really want to come home and cook. And I don't generally eat what the kids eat anyway. And if I do feed myself, I would probably over proportion because that's what I did in the past. So you get these pre-portioned meals and they're like maybe 500 calories each. And you might be a little bit hungry for a couple weeks and then your body just, what happens is, and I'm not claiming to be a health expert. I just know what works. And to me, your body just kind of gets used to it. I just returned a week ago from a vacation for a week in Cabo. And I had a bunch of friends in, rented a house on the beach and it was a great time. And we had a private chef and I ate and drank as much as you could possibly do. And I come home and I just start eating Fit Eats again and my body just kind of naturally goes back down. I think the other thing that happens is when I go out to a restaurant now, I eat more like a woman. And what I mean by that is oftentimes I can't finish whatever portion they're bringing. And so I think your body just naturally gets down to its, kind of normal weight. And it just kind of knows how to maintain it. Today, if I try and overeat, it just doesn't feel good. It's not worth not feeling good for an hour. So I can try and stuff more stuff in, but I just don't really need it. And if you were to take all of that, the food that say a man my size eats in a day or should eat, it's not as much as you think, not close. It's about half as much as you think. And I think that's the disconnect that the meal preps and meal delivery services have figured out is that if I were to show you a visual of those 500 calorie meals, it's not much. Now I do snack and all that stuff. I like to drink wine or beer, but I don't have to regulate any of that. It just when you're on a system, then it just kind of works out because you can't really gain weight because you're not overeating. So anyway, that I'm a firm believer in that. I think you'll see that those kind of pre-planned meals, companies will continue to be a thing because it works. It works to maintain weight. If you get them fresh, after about 5 days, I'll freeze mine. They taste just fine frozen 2-3 weeks later. So I think there's something to that. And I was one of these people where after I was about 25, I struggled with weight. And I was always 20 or 30 pounds heavier than I should be. And so that's my sort of magic, not so magic pill. It sounds like it's hard to do. I will really tell you that after a couple weeks, it's really not. It's really not. It's just what you do. Number 6 talks about surround yourself with positive and motivating people. The tactic is you are a byproduct of your environment. Be selective who's in your inner circle and adjust as necessary. So reading between the lines, you can see I'm saying, hey, cut out those negative people. I'll tell you a story around this. I'll tell you a couple stories. So years ago, I have this guy that I kind of admired, and I got to know him through, he was a vendor to a company I was associated with. And, you know, he was a really good golfer. He was a handsome man. And he just seemed to have it all going on. He invited me out. We're out in Miami Beach one night, and he rents a limo, and I just really thought he had it going on. And so he lived fairly close to me, and he starts saying, hey, let's hang out. And I'm like, hey, maybe this is a new buddy. And I forgot, we're having drinks somewhere out with a group of people. And he says, at one point he says, hey, do you want to go do some blow? Now, I have never done a drug like that in my life, and it scared me. And I just, after that, I was just like, you know what? I'm not hanging around that guy anymore. You know, I don't need someone who is doing things like that, because I'm going to be a product of my environment, and maybe I won't want to, but someday I might say, yeah, let's go do some blow. So I have another friend, actually just texted me today. That's why it's fresh in my mind. So I was hanging out with this gentleman, and he's just one of these people that you just love to hang around. He's just infectious. He's got a great laugh. He's funny, very engaging, and he needed some help. So he also liked golf, so I'd play golf with him, and we just had a riot. He went on a couple of guys trips with me playing golf and stuff. So I started hanging out with this guy more, and then it starts to come out that he's got a girlfriend on the side that evidently his wife knows about. And there's rumors of drug use and things like that. And I just kind of disassociated with him and haven't talked to him or spoken to him in probably a year. And he just happened to text me today and say, hey, buddy, what's going on? Let's grab a beer. I won't grab a beer with him because I'm a product of who I hang around. And sometimes it's hard. Like I really do like this guy. I don't dislike him. I just dislike some of his behavior. And so it's hard to make those choices. I see people all the time, and oftentimes it's family members, and they're like, oh my God, this family member drives me crazy. And they're just so over the top, or they're dysfunctional or whatever. I think we're all dysfunctional, just so you're clear. You know, I certainly have my share of dysfunctions. But there's dysfunctional, and then there's another level. And really what I'm talking about is that second level, where if you hang around those people long enough, you're going to be like them. You know, I just exited from my 20-year coaching company, and I've got some extra time, so I figured I'd do some podcasts. But it's my way of giving back. But what I saw through that is we would bring someone into this organization, and in that organization, a lot of it was about how to make more money in business. So, say someone making 200,000 a year starts hanging around people that make $1 million a year, and every single time they would just rise to that occasion. I mean, maybe 10% of the people didn't, but about 9 out of 10, they were there in 2, 3, 4 years, and they were just yes, they were being professionally coached, but they became friends. That the people in the organization all had the same mindset. I remember in the same company, just to give you an example, the leader is a great mentor of mine, Rick Ruby, and he said, hey, on our personal budget, which is one of the forms we track, we should start tracking how much money we give away. And I thought, hey, yeah, sounds good. So we just put one line on the very bottom. It said, charity year to date. And so we all started tracking it. And of course, when we started tracking it, the first year, the group of 500 individuals that we coach, we all gave away about $3 million. And that's a lot of money. Fast forward, 10 years later, we're giving away 18 million, $20 million. I mean, some big numbers. And that's just because we were encouraging each other. We're like, hey, I would be on a coaching call and be like, hey, who are we helping? You're being blessed. What are we doing to give that back? And so who you hang around and who you associate with makes a big difference in who you end up being. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is, we all have people in our lives and we're thinking, hey, I would love to just hang around that person more. I met them at a party, or they're maybe a minor acquaintance I met, but they seem like a high quality person, or they're a really good business person, or they have a really good marriage. Take that extra step and find a way to befriend that person and get them in your fold a little bit. And I think that is very simple to do, but it's very, very, it will have ripple effects in your life that we probably never thought of. The last one is think big. And I'll talk about this a bit, and then I'll give you a couple of exercises that you can do. Why don't people achieve at a bigger level? Why don't they do that Fit Eats plan? Why don't they learn to play guitar? Why don't they go for that promotion? I think there's lots of reasons, and I think they're mostly emotional. But the concept here is that if you push yourself to think bigger, someone told me a long time ago, you start thinking, you start doing. And I found that to be very, very true. One of the reasons I'm big into visual aids and writing stuff down is because when you do those things, it's an action, and we can start to see those things become a reality. And sometimes it's not for a year or 5 years, but they tend to happen. So how do you think bigger? Well, certainly 1-year goal setting, which I did a podcast on, is a big part of that. I'll tell you one tactic that I have a lot of business people do is they have this, I make them write down on their business card, the date, and put a income goal on there that they want to achieve. And I've got mine here. And there's no end date on it. The one I'm looking at has an income goal I never thought I would achieve. And I wrote it in November of 2015. And last year I achieved it 5 years later. I literally, when I wrote this card, because I remember writing it, it's been in my wallet for 5 years, I never thought I would achieve that. But somehow it gets in your head. It's not like I'm pulling out that card all the time and looking at it. I might catch it in my wallet once or twice a year. I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that. But somehow it gets inside you, and it's a way of thinking bigger. It's a thing of stretching ourselves. You've seen this where, was it P90X, and they have all the before and after shots. I'm sure a lot of those people never thought they could get a six-pack, but they followed this program and they did the habits. And, I tell everyone, if you work out 6 days a week and you eat chicken and broccoli, you're going to have a six-pack too. So, but they took the steps to do it. And but it started with a thought. It started with, hey, I want to feel better, or want to feel more vibrant, or whatever the reason was. And they took the action, and they followed that program, and they got some great results. So I just think that thinking small doesn't make the world a better place. I think that if we think bigger, we will do bigger. And I'm not talking about, I think when I say things like this, sometimes people are thinking about, well, gosh, Todd, I'm not meant to be a CEO of a company or start my own business or whatever. Don't be so concerned, don't have restraints around that, first of all. But second of all, any improvement is great. Be the best you. This kind of reminds me of the comparison game. And certainly I have been caught up this in the past where I'm like, well, okay, I'm doing X, but someone else is doing more. Not everyone can be Michael Jordan. But be the best version of you. That's something we can all do. And whatever that best version is good enough for everybody. But stretching yourself and pushing yourself into that direction is very, very insightful. In my mortgage banking company, I think of it more as a developmental company than anything else. So I work on these things all the time. Well, I'll tell you one story. That we had this receptionist in one of our offices back east, and she had told the branch manager, "Hey, I want to be a loan officer someday," and he was like, "No, I just don't think you got it." Maybe she's 18 at the time or something. Fast forward to today, she's one of my best salespeople in the country, and I'm talking not college educated, didn't have the, the background that most people think. She's just super gritty, and she's a really good learner, and she works really hard. I've got about 5,000 stories like that. And so I personally have a lot of proof that anybody can do anything. I don't care what it is. And that's the starting point. So if you don't have that inner belief right now, that's okay, but just start thinking that way. And here's one tactic that you can do that will help this process. So you start, maybe at your computer, and you write a 5-year story to yourself in present tense. So, if maybe you're writing the story and it's going to be, instead of January 21, it's January 26. And you are writing a story about the different areas of your life. What does your romantic or your love life look like? What does it feel like? What does your family life look like? What does your health look like, physically? What does your career look like? Have you been promoted a couple of times? Did you start that business? What do your personal finances look like? What do your hobbies look like? What do your vacations look like? Vacations that you're going on? What kind of, I want to be careful of this comment, but some part of getting better is we have more stuff. I call it stuff, boats and sports cars and things like that. I don't think those things necessarily make you happier, but hey, let's be honest. It's cool to drive a nice car. It's cool to, I remember when I grew up, I wore Toughskins, right? So those are the cheap jeans that mom got you because they didn't wear out, and they sold them at Kmart. Well, it's nice to not wear Toughskins anymore and to wear pants that, fit correctly and look nice, or nice watches, stuff like that. A cool guitar. I don't spend money on a lot of stuff. I'm not a big stuff person, but I love a good guitar. I've been playing guitar since I was young, and there's nothing like a really good guitar. So, write a letter to yourself about all of those things, and don't have any barriers. You're going to write stuff down that seems totally crazy to you. Totally crazy to you. However, I've done this several times, and I've had hundreds of people, if not thousands, do it. And what's funny about it is you'll write it, and hopefully you'll share it with a couple people, and you'll put it away. And I remember the first one I ever wrote, I was moving out of a house. I bought another house, and I found it. I found the first one I wrote, and it was only 2.5 years ago. And I read it, and I had accomplished 90% of things that are on there in 2.5 years, let alone 5 years. And that's what happens when you do exercises like this. There was that, I didn't watch the movie or read the book, but the Secret, was a super famous book 10, 15 years ago, and they made a movie about it. That's what it's talking about. I'm not good enough, I'm not a doctorate of psychology. I just know that it works. I know that when you put stuff in your head that you're dreaming about, and you give yourself permission to think that way, it just has a tendency to come to light. Think of it this way. Let's say you wrote all that stuff down, and you only accomplished 30% of it. That's 30% more than where you were. But I will tell you, you'll be shocked when you do silly things like this, like the income on the business card or the 5-year story, but you have to do it. You have to you could do that letter. You could do the business card in 10 seconds. You could do the 5-year story, writing yourself a present tense letter 5 years from now. You could do that in 30 minutes. Now, what's funny about all this stuff, and one of the reasons that I wanted to do a podcast is, if in the coaching world, people would pay us a ton of money to professionally coach them, but you can do a lot of these things on your own. If you're a self-driven person with a little bit of discipline, you can do some of these habits and get some of these things done. Think of the meal plan. Those meals are about $8 a piece. So you might spend $100 extra a month on groceries or something, but it's not much more than that. So a lot of these things don't cost a lot of money. So don't use that as an excuse. But the benefits are enormous. The benefits are enormous. So I think that these are just 7 ideas. I mean, I could have covered 100 ideas, but these are just 7 ideas that I have found that really make a difference in people's lives. At the end of the day, we all want the same things. We all want basic things like love and companionship and security with money. But all of those things are tied to one thing, and that is developing skill sets. And what we're talking about is how to develop some skill sets around having more joy in our life and less stress. Well, who doesn't want that? I love Tony Robbins' pain and gain principle, which I'm sure he stole it from someone else. But, we always want less pain, and we always will do anything to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And but that doesn't mean there's shortcuts to all that stuff. And it's like the gratitude journal. I was doing that for about a month because I made a commitment to myself, and I said, you know what? Someone told me to do this. I'm just going to do it. And it takes 3 minutes a day. It can't be a bad thing. And so I just did it. And what you will find is that sometimes it's not immediate. I know for me, if I use the gratitude journal as an example, after the first month, I noticed a change. A year later, a big change. 3 years later, a huge change. And so these things take time. We're adults, and so if you've thought a certain way for 25 years or 35 years or 50 years, it's also going to take time to change those things. And I'm a big proponent that if we can make our life better and we can make the world a little bit better place, but start with ourselves, then we'll be more giving. The world is going to be a better place. In a world that we've seen this last year be very divisive and to the point to where people are doing really crazy things. All that tells me is that people don't have any inner peace. Like people, I don't think of running around and hitting somebody or rioting or breaking into someone's car. I mean, I don't have those things because I've worked on myself. Okay. And that's what we're talking about, is taking the time to invest in ourselves. And these 7 things really will make a difference. I would encourage you to pick one. And I always want people to do something so that they have some sort of accountability. So what you would do is take one of these things, take the meal plan. And I want you to text someone right now, text your best friend, text your spouse, and text your kids and say, hey, I will eat a meal plan for the next 2 months straight, 5 out of 7 days a week, or I'll pay you $20 a day I miss. Okay. Do something like that so that you have an accountability partner, someone who can help support you and encourage you through this, because that's a big component. I am a very disciplined person, but I also need that. And so I would really encourage you to pick one of these things, daily gratitude journal, send a text to somebody and say, hey, I'm going to do this. I'll pay you $10 a day. I don't do it. It takes 3 minutes. It can't be that big of a deal, but we've got to take that first step. And I think the reason a lot of people won't take that first step is they just don't have self-belief. They don't have self-love. And I think that in itself is a pandemic with what we're talking about. So take some time to invest in yourself. There's a saying that I heard someone say: people spend more time planning their vacation than they will working on themselves. And it's probably true for most people, right? So take a little bit of time. If we're talking 10 minutes a day working on yourself, you add that up over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it makes a big difference in who you are as a person. Okay. So send that text out. Remember, you can always get beyourbestseries.com. You can always get the visual aids. I always have at least one handout so that you can put it up on your fridge, or you can reference it later or go over it with someone. I also want you to share this with someone. So take whatever platform you're looking at this, refer it to one person and just shoot them a text and say, hey, listen to this. I got some good stuff. Part of the reason I do that is because there's an old saying that givers gain. When you take the time to try and help somebody, it makes you feel better, and it will also make you implement the information as well. And that's why I have you do that. The last thing is, guys, I do own a mortgage company. If you're thinking of buying a house, or you need to refinance a house, that's what my company does for a living. If you go on our website, we have offices all over the country, and you can apply. You can pick a loan officer. You can pick an office. So that's if you like some of the stuff that I'm talking about, and you want to deal with a company like that, that's who we are. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you send it to a friend. Make sure you pick one thing. Go out and make it a great day, guys. Bye. I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be.